Hello there, my name is Carly Andrews. I'm the Senior Project Coordinator for the North Dakota Brain Injury Network. You are viewing Return to Learn After Concussion. Just a little about us at the Brain Injury Network. We have 3 staff, small but mighty, myself, and then we have Rebecca Quinn, our director, and Nikki Nicole, that lives in Towner, and Rebecca and I live in Grand Forks, but please don't let that hinder you from contacting us for support for students, because we do serve the entire state of North Dakota, so we are willing to come out and travel if needed. And Nikki answers our 1-800 number, which is 1-855-866-1884. So she answers that Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So if you happen to call on off hours, she will get back to you when she can. All right. So one of my very first days of work. So backstory on me, I taught special education for 10 years. I taught a self-contained program for students with intellectual disabilities and got burnt out doing that. And so have now been with NDBIN for almost 5 years. And one of my first days of work was asking Rebecca, what is our role in prevention? And she said, basically, we would need to put everyone in a bubble to realistically prevent all brain injuries. So just something to think about. And actually, there is a phenomenal speaker, Kim Gorgens, 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 that has a really good TED Talk on concussion. And she talks about how her son, and he can go out into the world now because she has this new technology designed where she put him in a bubble, like Rebecca said. You know, it's kind of that same idea that we don't want to be alarmists and say that we can't have fun, we can't play games, we can't do stuff, but we want to do so with safety in mind and with our brain, our precious brain in mind. So when the brain does get bumped and a concussion is sustained, we at the Brain Injury Network have a really great concussion management manual, and it is called the REAP, which the R stands for remove or reduce, the E is for educate, the A is accommodate or adjust, and the P is for pace. So I do have hard copies. If you would like some, please reach out, but I would prefer you use the PDFs because we're running low on hard copies. So, but I do have business cards with how you can access the PDF as well. So if you had like a student you wanted to give some of those cards out to or something, or wanted to put them up at an event, I could definitely provide those for you as well. So give that guide a peek, and I'm going to kind of explain the guide a little bit to you right now as well. So the guide is color coded. So to me, it's a great guide, and Karen McAvoy that put it together did a wonderful job, but it is very busy on each page as you open it up and you start to explore it. But if you tell the individuals that you're working with to only focus on their color on their team, it can be a lot less overwhelming. So orange is for family, light blue is the school team or the physical side of things, the darker blue is the school team but the academic side of things, the green is the medical team, but it is very important that all of these teams, all of these colors work together and talk to each other and communicate, because concussion is very serious. I know it seems like people kind of seem to poo-poo concussion and it's like, oh, no big deal, but it actually is a big deal, and it can have a compounding effect. Once we stay in one concussion, our odds of having another are much higher. And so we just really want to keep people safe and from sustaining multiple concussions. If it happens once, that's one thing, but we want to stop multiple from happening. So we really want you to take a multidisciplinary approach so that nothing is overlooked. So the first 4 weeks after a concussion are the most critical. So that's when we want to monitor students significantly. We do have a good infographic for this as well that can be found at that link, or if you just kind of explore our website and type in academic accommodations, it should pop up there for you. But here it is. Here's what it looks like. So let's see here. I'll go through this with you, sorry. But basically just some info on the top, but then it has pacing, workload reduction. So week 1, what you should do, week 2, week 3, week 4, things you can do for note taking and testing and noise and light sensitivity, and some visual things you can also provide as well. So the biggest thing about not wanting individuals to sustain another concussion is this second impact syndrome. So we don't want that player to get another concussion right after their first one. So we need to remove that student from all physical activity until they're medically cleared. We need to reduce demands at school and socially until they are medically cleared. The brain needs to rest, but no, the brain does not need to sit in like a dark dungeon for 2 weeks, which is the way that concussion was treated a few years ago. So we're learning more and more about the brain as we progress and technology advances and things like that. And so it needs rest, but it doesn't necessarily need total darkness and total no stimulation. So we need to make sure that all teams are monitoring symptoms and that they all know how to help with rest and accommodations. So every team, that physical, that academic, that family team, the doctor, everybody needs to be on the same page about that. At home after concussion, it should be total bed rest for 2 days. No phones and no TVs. This can be the really tricky part with our technology nowadays, right? So, so yeah, total bed rest. They're probably not going to feel like doing a whole lot either, but I have heard some kids complain, oh, those times you wouldn't let me have my phone. But then if symptoms get better and they improve, you can slowly work up to things like a phone. But if symptoms occur, then we need to go back to total bed rest. Okay. So once we can tolerate 30 to 45 minutes of mental activity, then we should return to school. So once they are back in the classroom, we need to pace. This is where the pace comes in. So week 1, we need to give frequent eye, water, brain breaks. So for every 5 to 10 minutes after focusing on reading or computer for 20 to 30 minutes, we take a 5-minute break. Sorry, that's written kind of weird. So if you're working for 20 to 30 minutes, you need to take a 5 to 10 minute break following that. Keep in mind that, you know, we're just having them there to listen and learn. We're not really having huge expectations. We don't want to have them doing any like busy work or non-essential work in the classroom. Okay, so now week 2 comes and we want to slowly kind of start to raise the bar of our expectations. We want to, although not prioritize current work over makeup work, okay? Or we do want to prioritize current work over makeup work. So makeup work, let's just kind of forget about that. Let's just focus on what they need to do today. We need to reduce the overall amount of required classroom assignments and shorten tests and projects during this week if there's anything due during this week. Then weeks 3 and 4, again, we continue to adjust our expectations. We remove and reduce some work, but we add in more work as healing progresses. But we don't want that student to carry a double workload. So missed assignments plus late assignments without plus new assignments without penalty, okay? So don't have them do a double workload, okay? We want to limit homework to no more than 1 hour per day outside of school in weeks 3 and 4. So then another part of PACE is gradually returning to play in sports, and that's in page 12 of the REAP. And so take a peek at that too. That really maps that out. And then I love appendix pages 15 and 16. Whenever I get calls about concussion or a kiddo returning to learn, I always highly recommend that everybody on the team take a peek at those pages, and if so, they could fill that out as well. So here we go. Here kind of is that explaining about how much the degree of the physical injury doesn't always determine the difficulty related to long-term function, okay? So we have that initial injury. Risk of second injury is 3 times greater. A risk of a third injury is 8 times greater after a second injury, okay? We've cracked that foundation, if you will. So it's just we've rattled the brain. It's much more susceptible to injury. And now we have this understanding that with multiple mild injuries, it has a compounding effect into more like a moderate or severe injury. Like NFL players, for example, right? We're noticing that the more and more concussions they get, then the more problems that they have later in life. And it was actually their wives that brought this to the attention of their doctors. But yeah, it has a compounding effect. So we need to be careful. Traumatic brain injury is the leading cause of death and disability for children and teens. I'm going to say that again. Traumatic brain injury is the leading cause of death and disability for children and teens. We have two categories, 0 to 4-year-olds and then 15 to 19-year-olds. 0 to 4-year-olds are learning how to walk and learning how to, navigate that environment of theirs, and there's often falls. 15 to 19-year-olds are playing sports, they're learning how to drive, they're texting and driving, drunk driving. There's all kinds of factors that relate to teens as well. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? Let's do a little prevention with these people, okay, with this population. So wearing the proper protective equipment can go a really long way. We want to create safe sports cultures. We want to enforce the rules. Many times when an injury happens, it is because the rules of the game are not being followed. We work closely with Indy Bin works closely with Safe Kids Grand Forks office, and we work a little bit with the other cities throughout the state too, but more so with Grand Forks, being that Rebecca and I are here in Grand Forks, but they have really, really great prevention information. I would highly recommend checking out. This is a slide that I just wanted to share with you as educators, because I do go out and do high school presentations for like advanced healthcare. So that's a plug too. If you ever want me to come, I can talk to, well, it doesn't have to be advanced healthcare, it can be any class you'd really want me to, but that is another thing that we offer. But if I'm in front of high schoolers, I talk about all of these things because these are all related to brain injury. Brain injury can be overwhelming when we present, and from our perspective, there's just so much we want to tell you all about, and we really want you to take it to heart, but I know it's so much stuff. But here's kind of what I stress to the high schoolers that I talk to. Never, never, never shake a baby. I talk about that. I talk about having my daughter, in like my early 30s, and I thought I was all ready to go and prepared, and I don't know, when you get home from the hospital that first day and that baby cries, it's scary, right? I think those of us that are parents can relate to that. And so just normalizing it and having that conversation that, it's okay to feel that way, but it's never okay to shake a baby, and it's not going to make the crying stop anyway. Put the baby in a crib and walk away. They can be okay for a couple minutes, or call a friend, do something, but don't ever shake a baby. Don't get into a car with a drunk driver, and don't drive drunk yourself. If you're a parent or a teacher, really having that conversation with youth and saying, I'm never going to ask questions, just call me. I'd rather you be safe than sorry. Buckle up, wearing a seatbelt. Seatbelt really helps from your brain, obviously hitting like the dashboard and things like that. So wearing a seatbelt can go a long way. Wearing a helmet, and when you're doing things that, basically when there's wheels under your feet, there should be a helmet on your head. So this helps reduce impact by 50%. So all it is some really heavy duty styrofoam, but that protects that brain of yours. The next one is if someone's saying no, if they're hurting you, please get help, or just reach out. CVIC is here in Grand Forks, I know, but there are domestic violence shelters all over the state, and there are people out there that want to help you and that can get you out of that situation. Just say no in terms of drug use. I know that's a cheesy one, and it's much easier said than done, but drugs are so harmful and addictive, and now with fentanyl, we don't know what's in things anymore. You can overdose at any time, and overdose is a brain injury. Okay, it's oxygen deprivation. And then finally, I think it's important that kids are aware of, brain injuries are invisible, and everyone has a story. And the people you might work with, at your jobs coming up, or in your classroom at your school, your partner next to you could have a brain injury and you don't know. So just being cognizant of that and thinking about that, and trying to make sure that we are accepting and welcoming and kind to people, and thinking about that. as we move forward in life. So my resources, I mostly cited the REAP manual, which is by Karen McAvoy. So that is all for this one, and thank you for listening. Talk soon. Bye.